Hello, Dark Sisters of the Moon. This is our second month together, holding the intention to come together in circle and gatherings and ceremony in solidarity with each other for the healing of our relationships to ourself, each other, and this planet. And I'm doing something I haven't done before for this group, and I'm making a little video. So I'm still getting some of the kinks worked out and the lighting. But I want to do this video because there's this piece of writing that I simply love and think is a very appropriate reading for this particular month's topic, which is Our Body, Ourselves. And no, I'm not going to be reading out of the book Our Bodies, Ourselves, which is a great book and we should all own it and read it. Very, very important. But that title came up and it's really about a broader subject, which we probably can all guess has to do with our relationship with our bodies, which is a challenging relationship for most of us who are female-bodied or who were socialized as women. And so I'm going to read a selection called Body Talk out of the book by Clarissa Pinkola Estes called Women Who Run with Wolves. Let's see if we can see it with the shine. Yeah, this is a great book and I completely recommend it. I recommend a lot of what Clarissa writes about. She has several really amazing books and a lot of really good writing. Her letter to a young activist in troubled times is one of my favorite go-tos if I need a little inspirational juice to get me through my day. But so this piece is really important and I'm just going to read it to you. It's a couple pages long, but I figured this was probably the best way to get this out to everybody. Our gatherings hopefully will happen tomorrow night between 8 and 10 p.m. your local time. We'll be hosting one here at Woodpecker Farms, and I encourage anyone who just wants to sit with this material on her own, light a candle, think about it, or get together with some friends, or post a meetup, or post a Facebook event, however you want to do it. I realize that this is super last minute, but that's how fast time has moved in this last month, and this is the soonest I could get to you. So here we go. Okay, this section's called Body Talk, and if you have the book, it's on page 199. A friend and I once performed a tandem storytelling called Body Talk about discovering the ancestral blessings of our kith and kin. Opalanga is an African-American griot, and she is very tall like a yew tree and as slender. I am una Mexicana, and I am built close to the ground and am of extravagant body. In addition to being mocked for being tall as a child, she was told that the split between her teeth was a sign of being a liar. And I was told that my body shape and size were signs of being inferior and of having no self-control. In this concurrent telling about body, we spoke of the slings and arrows that we received throughout our lives because, according to the great they, our bodies were too much of this and not enough of that. In our telling, we sang a mourning song for the bodies that we were not allowed to enjoy. We rocked and we danced and we looked at each other, and we were thinking the other was so mysterious looking in such a beautiful way that how could anyone have thought otherwise? How amazed was I to hear that as an adult, she had journeyed to the Gambia in West Africa and found some of her ancestral people who, lo, were slender. Among her tribe, many who were very tall, like yew trees and as slender, and who had splits between their front teeth. And this split, they were told, she was explained to her, was called a sakayaya and meant the opening to God. And it was understood as a sign of wisdom. How inspired she was when I told her that as an adult I had journeyed to the isthmus of Tehuantepec in Mexico and found some of my ancestral people, who, lo, were a tribe of giant women who were strong, flirtatious, and commanding in their size. And they had patted me and plucked me and boldly remarked that I was not quite fat enough. Did I not eat enough? Had I been ill? I must try harder, they explained, for women of La Tierra, made round like the earth herself, were because the earth holds so much. So in the performance, as in our lives, our personal stories, which began as experiences both oppressive and depressive, ended with joy and with a strong sense of self. Opalanga understands that her height is her beauty, that her smile is one of wisdom, and that the voice of God is always close to her lips. I understand that my body is not separate from the land, that my feet are made to hold my ground, and that my body is a vessel made to carry much. We learned from powerful people outside of our own United States culture to revalue our bodies, to refute ideas and language that would revile the mysterious body, or that would ignore the female body as an instrument of knowing. To take much pleasure in a world filled with many kinds of beauty is a joy in life to which women are entitled. To support only one kind of beauty is to somehow be unobservant of nature. There cannot be only one kind of songbird, or only one kind of pine tree, or only one kind of wolf. There cannot be one kind of baby, one kind of man, or one kind of woman. There cannot be one kind of breast, one kind of waist, one kind of skin. My experience with women of size in Mexico caused me to question the entire set of analytic premises that I had been given about women's various sizes, shapes, and especially weights. One old psychological premise, in particular, seemed grotesquely erroneous. The idea that all women of size are hungry for something, that, quote, inside of them is a thin person screaming to get out, end quote. When I suggested this screaming thin woman metaphor to one of the majestic Tijuana I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that right, Tijuana tribeswomen, they peered at me somewhat alarmed. Did I mean possession by an evil spirit? Who would have put such an evil thing inside a woman? She asked. It was beyond her comprehension that a woman would be considered by healers or anyone else to have a screaming woman within her because she was naturally big. While compulsion and destructive eating disorders that distort body size and body image are real and tragic, they are not the norm for most women. Women who are big or small, wide or narrow, short or tall, are most likely to be so simply because they inherited their body configuration from their kin. If not their immediate kin, then those generations, a generation or two back. To malign or judge a woman's inherited physicality is to make generation after generation of anxious and neurotic women. To make destructive and exclusionary judgments about a woman's inherited form robs her of several critical and precious psychological and spiritual treasures. It robs her of her pride in her body type that was given to her by her own ancestral lines, and if she is taught to revile this body inheritance, she's immediately slashed away from her female body identity and the rest of the family. If she is taught to hate her own body, how can she love her mother's body that has the same configuration as hers, her grandmother's body, the bodies of her daughters as well? How can she love the bodies of other women and men close to her who have inherited their body shapes and configurations from their ancestors? To attack a woman thusly destroys her rightful pride of affiliation with her own people and robs her of the natural lilt she feels in her body no matter what height, size, shape she is. In essence, the attack on a woman's body is a far-reaching attack on the ones who have come before her, as well as the ones who will come after her. Instead, harsh judgments about body acceptability create a nation of hunched-over tall girls, short women on stilts, women of size dressed as though in mourning, and very slender women trying to puff themselves out like adders, and various other women in hiding. Destroying a woman's instinctive affiliation with her natural body cheats her of her confidence. It causes her to perseverate about whether she is a good person or not, and base her self-worth on how she looks instead of who she is. It pressures her to use up her precious energy worrying about how much food she consumes, or the reading on the scale and the tape measure. It keeps her preoccupied, colors everything she does, plans, and anticipates. It is unthinkable in the instinctive world that a woman should live preoccupied by appearance in this way. It makes utter sense to stay healthy and strong, to be as nourishing to the body as possible. Yet what I would have to agree, there is in many women a hungry one inside. But rather than hungry to be a certain size, shape, or height, rather than hungry to fit into the stereotype, women are hungry for basic regard from the culture surrounding them. The hungry one inside of them is longing to be treated respectfully, to be accepted, and in the very least, to be met without stereotyping. If there really is a woman screaming to get out, she is screaming for the cessation of the disrespectful disrespectful projections of others onto her body, her face, and her age. So, clearly she goes on to say many other wise things, but I just wanted to share that piece with you so that we can begin to think about the ways that we treat ourselves, the ways that we look at ourselves and our bodies, and the way that we look and judge others. Because really, I feel that this is one of the main things that comes to fruition when we are preteens and follows us into our young adult, and maturing lives. And I had an incredible, fortunate circumstance in my life of being able to go to an all-women's college and getting to know many empowered, strong, and independent and free-thinking women who were all striving to be more free, and also had the privilege of being queer and loving women and realizing that the women that I loved did not fit the very, very, very narrow stereotype of what I thought I should look like. And so that started to dismantle my own prejudice that was internally focused. And still, there's so much more to do and so much negative programming that comes to us subliminally through media and through our society and through the way that we interact as various genders coming together. And so for this month and for this week's gathering, for tomorrow's gathering, if you should meet with anyone or if you just want to meet with yourself, the practice that I would like you to contemplate is sharp focus versus soft focus. So with sharp focus, we narrow our gaze and we really grab whatever it is we're looking at. And one could think of this as a masculine trait. So in the divine male way of seeing, we think of the archer, we think of the hunter being able to really pinpoint and really narrow focus down to one specific place. And in male sexuality, it's often discussed that, part of what attracts a man can be a very specific physical trait. And then there's nothing wrong with that or shameful about that. That's just potentially how male sexuality works. There's a very interesting NPR, This American Life program on NPR. There's an episode called Testosterone that's all about different stories about testosterone. And there's a really interesting little nugget of a story in there about a trans man going through the transition with the hormone testosterone and, moving from a queer-identified female-bodied person into a male-identified person and coming from a feminist background and seeing the way that his own perceptions of the female body changed and his sexual arousal by this really narrow focus on a very specific body part. And I thought that was interesting to think of this narrow focus as being more biological and hormonal than it is necessarily just socialized. But as we find ourselves currently living in this patriarchal society that has been built over thousands of years, we see that our society has bent towards this very male way of perceiving. And the female way of perceiving is a much softer, much broader focus. So in that hunter-gatherer sort of way, we think of the female focus as being really wide lens and being able to take in a lot of information at once. And for those of you that are mothers, you know that this is a skill that comes in really handy, being able to literally see behind you what is happening. We use all of our senses to see in a very broad way. And this is actually a really relaxing exercise to do within yourself. So you can start out just by looking at the room and noticing how you zone in on different things. And I notice this a lot when I'm driving. There's a lot of visual noise in a city when you're driving. There's a lot of billboards and advertisements and signs and business names, and just there's information for your brain to latch onto in every single direction. And I particularly have been enjoying, this sounds dangerous, but actually I find it to be pretty safe, to soften my focus by becoming aware that my eyes are perceiving visual input. So just that little piece of awareness, my eyes are seeing right now, is a way for me to sort of lift my visual perceptions out and begin to become aware of the full spectrum that I'm able to see. So my eyes end up feeling like, this is a strange description, but if you've seen an actor playing someone who's blind on screen, you notice that they don't have eyes that, they aren't using their eyes to focus on something. They're zoning their eyes out. They're broadening their focus. They're softening their focus. And they're not directing their gaze in any particular direction, right? You can almost see in their eyes that they're listening. They're using their other senses. And so when I'm driving and I do this, what I notice is instead of reading signs or like looking at someone's face or like zoning in on any particular detail that I'm seeing, instead I'm seeing patterns, I'm seeing light, I'm seeing movement. And it actually, I think, makes me a bit of a safer driver, strangely. So I bring this up because this is a practice that I've been working on for the last couple months, and I notice that it's actually a really good practice for dealing with this issue of how we interact with our bodies. Because the way that we perceive our bodies and the way that we interact with our bodies is not only significant to ourselves and our own relationship with ourselves. And what I tell my children is their primary partnership, and will be until the day they die, is their consciousness and their body together. Right? That we are together in this. And so there's no point in treating our bodies like the enemy or like a meat sack that carries our brain around. Our body is our gift. It is the gift that the earth has given us to be able to experience human life here on this planet. So it is sacred, and it is a beautiful part of the earth that we live inside of. So the exercise is to look at yourself in the mirror like you normally would, and to notice what you're looking at. So just to become aware that you're looking at that wrinkle right here, or that white hair right there, or that eyebrow that always does that weird thing, or whatever it is that you like zone in on, that you really, really focus on, just notice that. And then jot it down. You could even draw it, as a series of dismembered parts, the eyebrow and the white hair and the wrinkle and this thing I'm not sure about, whatever it is that you criticize about yourself or that you microanalyze, write that down, and then go back to the mirror and do one thing first. Take a big step back off that mirror a little bit, back up enough so you can see your whole body. If you have a full-length mirror, that's great. And then soften your gaze. So become aware that you're seeing, zoom out your gaze so that you're seeing the whole room, your whole body, and start witnessing yourself by observing yourself, observing the shapes and the curves and the light and the shadow. Whatever it is you notice, just notice and observe without the need to evaluate or judge what you're seeing. That is the point. That sounds crazy, but it is really, really, really impactful. So you're observing without evaluating. Okay? And then do a second drawing that is, your impression of what you saw. So the shapes, the light, the darkness. It can be a very, very vague, soft drawing. And that's okay. Another fun exercise is to do some deep eyeball gazing with yourself in the mirror. And I like to do this with one side of my face at a time. So I'm really, otherwise you don't know which eye to look at, right? So you're really looking at one eye and doing that observation, not evaluation, just observation, sort of seeing what you see and then trying the other eye. And you'll notice that the two different sides of your faces have different personalities, different wisdoms, different stories to tell. When I did this exercise with myself, it was really surprising and beautiful in a way, because in my early years, my first initiation as a healer, I burned a good portion of this part of my face, including my eyeball and my eyelid and all this here. And this was one of my first experiences of seeing myself. I was told that I was going to be disfigured for life, and I really believed that, and the skin had all fallen off my face. And I remember looking in the mirror and seeing myself and crying, and my partner at the time coming up and saying, "Oh my God, it's okay. It's going to be okay. We're going to be okay." And me saying, "No, I can see myself. Like, I feel beautiful because I can see my true self. I can see myself coming through my eyes." So it's not, our self is not the surface of our skin. I guess is what I'm trying to say, or even how other people perceive us. And so this exercise was interesting for me in particular because I can really see the difference in how these two eyes perceive and how they look and how my face perceives and looks. So this is my offering to you. If you would like to try any of these exercises or incorporate that into any gathering that you're having on this dark side of the moon as we incubate and contemplate what is asking to be born through us, through our female wisdom and our female bodies and our female relationships. And I'm very honored that you're here and that you're seeing this video potentially, and that you have also the intention of connecting on this deep and meaningful level at this incredibly high octane time on our planet and with our species and our earth life. So thank you very much.